Heroes Forge, a Heroes of the Storm podcast.
What is going on, Forgers? Welcome to Season 2, Episode number 72 of Heroes Forge, a community-driven podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. This is your show host, Jeff Reynolds, and I'm here with the co-host of the show, who is more awesome than getting a useful legendary item in World of Warcraft. It's Kristen Ashton.
Yes, and that is so rare. I remember getting my first legendary in Legion, only to find out it was the worst legendary ever.
I mean, it's a completely different feeling because you get this legendary and you're like, how can I make this work? I'm going to try to, alter my entire, the way I play this game just to get this legendary to work.
Yeah, but in the end, the haste thing with the rogue, it was that ring. And it was so sad, right? Because if I hadn't gone to the forums to look up this legendary and see how it could work, I wouldn't have known that it was so bad. I was just excited to have my item level up a few hundred points.
Yeah, and it's those people that crunch all of the numbers and they can just tell you, yeah, this legendary is not the best. But Kristen, you are indeed more awesome than getting a useful legendary in World of Warcraft.
Well, I appreciate that. It does make me feel special and very, 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 very rare.
Very rare. All right, we got lots of stuff to talk about today. Welcome to Heroes Forge. First thing, we're going to touch on a little bit of news. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers that are out there. We just want to thank you for all that you do, and happy Mother's Day to my mom as well.
Yep, happy Mother's Day to my mom. She took my dad out to TPC, the Players' Championship, down in, I believe, southern Georgia, northern Florida, because she wanted to thank Dad for all of the gifts that he's gotten her through the years. So they had a great time getting drunk, having food, and watching golf.
Wow, what a gift. That's like a reverse Mother's Day gift. I dig it, but I'm sure she had a blast too. Yeah, lots of stuff going on around the Twitter universe out there. Everybody thanking their moms and stuff. So we just wanted to throw that out at the beginning of the show. And we have an announcement here, a pretty big announcement. We were lucky enough to receive some loot codes from Blizzard, and we want to give them away. We want to give them away to you guys, the listeners of the show. So if you follow us on Twitter already, you know about this contest that's currently running. You can check out our Twitter page, which is @ForgeHeroes. Over on that page, you can see that there's one specific tweet that's the contest entry. It's pinned to our homepage there, and all you have to do is like the tweet, follow us on Twitter, and then reply to the tweet telling us what you think Deathwing's trait would be.
That's right. We don't make it rain for free here in Heroes Forge. You have to work for it, right? You have to express your imagination. Tell us what kind of thing you want Deathwing to have.
Yeah, and I mean, Deathwing is definitely a fan favorite, especially with the little, the misleading of the community with the last cinematic that came out. And, everybody wanted it to be Deathwing. It turned out that it was D.Va. I still personally think that they are teasing us on purpose, that Deathwing is on the way. So I want to know what you guys are thinking out there. What would be an awesome trait for Deathwing if he was brought over to Heroes of the Storm? Again, you can check out our Twitter page for more information on how to enter, and the drawing for that will be Wednesday evening. We're going to draw the winners. We have 3 D.Va codes, we have 3 Genji codes, and we have some loot box codes that we're giving away. And right now, there's a bunch of people that have entered, but everybody's got a pretty good chance of winning so far. So get on over there and make sure that you enter into this contest. It's going to be huge. Tell all of your friends to enter it as well, and maybe you could walk away, Kristen, with a pretty awesome hero to take home with you.
You could. I mean, Genji and D.Va are a ton of fun, especially if you haven't gotten to try them yet. And I mean, going through these, I definitely think I found my personal favorite.
Oh, let's hear it.
This one comes from...
Let's hear it.
Yes, this one comes from King Tezzeret, if I pronounced that correctly, hopefully. And it's called Cataclysm, and I love it because basically Deathwing takes off in dragon form and he flies to a location, but it's not as simple as that. No, the path he takes is burned with fire. I mean, how more dragon can you get than that?
Yeah, and how more Deathwing can you get than that? I mean, honestly, it's just wreaking havoc on this battlefield and this dragon flying across the battlefield. My personal favorite is coming from Twitter handle Larzabo over here, and this one is called The Spine of Deathwing. Players can use Deathwing as a two-person riding mount. While a player is mounted, Deathwing spawns corruptions. Boom!
Well, there we go. Mic dropped, and now we've got a battle going and everything. But keep in mind, dear listeners, these are not the only awesome traits out there. These are only a few out of this never-ending list of really great imaginings.
Yeah, and I wish we had time to go through all of them. There are tons on our page. Check them out when you enter the contest. You can read all these awesome ideas. Thank you so much to everyone that's sending in ideas for Deathwing's trait to enter the contest. And also, you should all know that it is a random winner for this contest. We're not going to pick the best one. We just wanted to point out a few that kind of, how do you say, tickled our fancy.
I think that's perfect. Tickling the fancy, that's exactly what it is, right? Because in my imaginings, at least, with the dragon, it's going to be a red dragon, and it's going to breathe fire when it flies.
Yeah, there's going to be a ton of Deathwing talk on this episode, Kristen, because this week we are forging Deathwing.
Yes, we are. And if you are listening but would like to check out the VOD, Jeff has gotten us lit. We are literally on fire over here, which is great. It's been winter, so it feels good to be warm for once.
Yeah.
But all the same, you got to be a little careful outside of our little video boxes.
Deathwing has decided to bring Cataclysm to the VOD, so you can check that out as well. But before we start talking about Deathwing, we gotta say it. Let's forge.
Let's forge.
If this is your first time listening to Heroes Forge, welcome to the show. We take a character in one of these Blizzard universes that isn't quite in Heroes of the Storm yet, but we build kits for these characters, and then we kind of just talk back and forth about what this character would be like if we brought them over to our favorite game, Heroes of the Storm. This week could be a special episode that's like 24 hours long, because I feel like, Kristen, we could talk about Deathwing forever.
I could have kept reading his backstory forever. I think I took a look at it this morning and I saw that it was a novel. Now, luckily in my childhood, I was an avid reader, so I was prepared to go through such a massive story. But wowza, for a character that is officially knocked out of the race, as it were, he has quite the story behind him, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's massive. And, luckily, like we always plug all of the time on our show, we get a lot of our lore from YouTube videos and things like that, where people have taken massive amounts of time to compile video and audio and backstory and lore, and they put them up on YouTube for people to be able to watch. So if you're interested in learning more about Deathwing and his place in Warcraft, all you gotta do is YouTube or Google search it, or go over to the WoW Wiki and check it out, or Wowhead, or any of those websites. There's tons there. So Kristen, sum it all up for us in just like a tiny little nutshell.
Okay, in a tiny, tiny nutshell. Originally the aspect of Earth, Neltharion served as the powerful leader of the Black Dragonflight. Unfortunately, the old gods would corrupt this godlike being, whispering to him possible futures and powers. Come the War of the Ancients, Neltharion defied his people and his position, choosing power over peace by seeking to enslave all dragons to his rule. Eventually changing his name to Deathwing, many of his attempts almost succeeded, if not for many interventions. The final, though, was to happen after his sundering of Azeroth. Heroes from across the realm banded together to take down Deathwing once and for all within the Maelstrom.
Yeah, very well done, because there is a lot here that we can't cover in this show. This is very well done. Now, Kristen, what are your personal experiences with Deathwing? Did you have a chance to play that battle from Cataclysm, to go into any of the Deathwing encounters, so to speak?
I did not. I watched the encounters. All I remember is thanking Deathwing for making the Barrens actually doable again. Well, not again, right? At least once. There was green, there was water in certain areas. It felt like there were subsections of the Barrens now instead of just this unending field of quests.
Yeah, because in this cataclysm that Deathwing, when he finally comes back, you know, when that expansion came out, it really just destroyed Azeroth and changed the landscape completely, which is a huge part of his, you know, dragon aspect powers and things like that, being just all powerful when it comes to, because before he became Deathwing, he was in charge of, for lack of a better way I can think of saying it right now, the landscape of Azeroth, right? Like forging the mountains and the rivers and helping the living beings that were on the planet be able to sustain life due to terrain.
Correct. He was the aspect of the earth. But what's interesting about this part that I read in the lore is that he felt the crushing weight of the world on him. And that crushing, that pain, is what led him to resent his position, thus opening his mind to the whispers of the old gods.
Right, and I'm sure they had a whole lot to do with why he became super corrupt and had these ideas of evil grandeur, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be able to resist at that point. Once you have, I guess once you have that seed of evil planted within your heart, it can take root and grow unless some divine intervention is able to come through and clear that away and help you either progress as a hero. But that did not happen for Deathwing.
Right. So I think there definitely is always an elephant in the room when it comes to Deathwing. Two elephants in the room, rather, I'm thinking of here, which the first one is, do you bring these dragon aspects into Heroes of the Storm in their humanoid form or in their dragon form? You know, they all have these humanoid forms that they're able to, you know, morph into to walk amongst the people of Azeroth and, you know, be part of it. We've seen it with Nozdormu and Ysera and all these other dragon aspects. Deathwing has one as well. So, Kristen, before we even get into these builds here, what were you thinking of bringing Deathwing in as?
A dragon, 100%. But I think that too would play to his character because he's proud of being a dragon. He loves being a dragon. He revels in the fact that he's a dragon. So I think it would go against his character if he didn't appear as a dragon in some form.
Right. I think it also plays to he would seem less powerful than he actually is, because all of these images we see of Deathwing, I mean, he is massive and just, I mean, a huge being. And out here on the battlefield, I feel like if we brought him in as his humanoid form, it just wouldn't do Deathwing justice in my mind.
No, not at all. And especially, too, since I learned that he was the one that summoned and set up Ragnaros. So why would Ragnaros get his sweet molten look, but then we wouldn't get Deathwing as a dragon?
Right, and that brings us to the second elephant in the room here, where it's been on Reddit a lot. It's been on a lot of different forums out there. When they teased this image that everyone thought was Deathwing, people are complaining because Deathwing would either be too large in the game, or Deathwing would be not a proper size to represent Deathwing. So it's like there's a give and take here. And what are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts are that those individuals that would post that would probably complain regardless of anything that happens. Because look at who we have in the Nexus already. We have Ragnaros. We have Diablo. We have Stitches. I mean, none of these are to size, right? Varian is almost as tall as Stitches is. I mean, he would be worked into a look that would fit play in the Nexus. And maybe that is why there's been such a delay, because dragons are so long, whereas most of the heroes we have are vertical.
Right. That's a really good thought that I didn't think of. And I actually, whilst researching this topic on Reddit, I found a really cool Reddit post that I will link in our show notes on our website that you can look at, which it actually takes all of the characters that are in Heroes of the Storm and puts their Heroes of the Storm models in perspective size, right? So Azmodan is huge and takes up like a ton of space. Also, one of the biggest things on that screen is Tychus's mech. What is that? That ultimate? I mean, it's
the
huge.
Odin.
Yeah, the Odin. I mean, there's some huge characters, quote unquote, that are bringing into the Nexus, and they're taking the size and bringing them down so that they can fit in this MOBA genre. Cho'Gall is another example of a huge character in there. Obviously, Murky, in comparison to some other characters, he would be one that got bumped up in size, you know? So it's something I feel is not an issue, and it would not bother me to have Deathwing as a smaller model in the game, because I'm sure he's going to be a total badass.
Exactly. As long as he's built right and he plays how the majority of us feel he should play, it would work. Because guess what? Regardless of how good graphics get, a huge part of gaming that I think we've all kind of forgotten with the invention of these more lifelike graphics is that it's all about imagination. I mean, the reason so many of us like original WoW or Diablo 2 is because we spent hours imagining things as we walked around desert areas or jungles. And that I think is why it would absolutely work.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mistaken Mishaps in the chat right now is saying that you could make Deathwing's abilities over the top and the size of Deathwing wouldn't matter because maybe the animations would be really cool in the game, and that would represent Deathwing really well. I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways you could bring him into the Nexus and still do justice to this character. And Kristen, I went with a dragon as well because, as everyone that listens to this show knows, we want dragons in this game so bad.
We want dragons. We want them now.
Yeah.
What's the rest of it, Jeff?
We don't care how. We want the dragons.
We want them now.
Yes, we do. We do. And so let's get on with this. How would we bring dragons into the Nexus? Let's talk about it right now. And Kristen, you get to go first this week. So first thing we start off with, as always, is the role classification for Deathwing. What are your thoughts?
Okay, role classification, I went with specialist. Now, the reason I didn't go with assassin or warrior is because though he's the aspect of death in his evil form, he still has power over the earth, as we saw with the Sundering of Azeroth. And so when I think of power over the map, I think of specialists far more than I do any of the other roles.
Wow. Okay. That's a really different thought than I had. So I'm super excited to hear how this all plays out. Specialist, now that you say that, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm sure. Oh, I can't talk about it. I got to know what's going on. So what's the trait over here on the specialist side?
All right, this trait is called corruption, and this was influenced by Kyle because I asked him about Deathwing, his initial thoughts, and he wanted something that evolved over time. Like visually, maybe he gets pieces of armor. So I didn't go with the visual, and I decided, what if his trait was what evolved over time? So over the course of the game, and this is called corruption, if I didn't mention it before. Over the course of the game, Neltharion falls prey to the whispering of the old gods, becoming more corrupt and gaining more power. To show this, his abilities are split between basic attack damage and ability damage. The longer the game goes on, the higher the percentage of ability damage is caused by the abilities.
Okay, so his abilities are going to get stronger throughout the game.
Yes, like they naturally would. So
this is like more. This is an increased amount of level scaling.
Yes, exactly. And so looking at the abilities, now abilities generally do ability damage, right? But what if we had abilities that 30% counted as basic attack, but the other 70% counted as ability damage. And that percentage then shifts as the game goes on. So not only are these attacks becoming stronger simply because you're leveling up, but they become a lot stronger as the game goes on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's really cool how we can play with that, and especially because when we were playing this week on Kyle Ferguson's Team League stream on Saturday, there are things that the group is talking about, ability damage, damage from basic attacks, things like that, and what counters those types of things. So if we could play with those things more, that would be really cool.
Yeah, and then, of course, if you have a hero like this who's drafted early, you wouldn't have to worry about too many counters, right? Because if you have a Tracer, just get some blinds, like a Lily, for instance, and you should be okay if the Lily is doing her job.
That's really cool. Okay, what are you thinking he's going to mount? Is he going to ride the Treasure Goblin into battle here?
I think he should be able to if you want him to. Make it silly if you want. That's why we've got this Heroes 2.0 going. But I think fly. He would definitely have to fly, would be his main ability. Or what if he's got a lava wave that he rides, kind of like Ragnaros?
That would be really cool. I thought of the lava wave thing too, and I think that'd be really neat that he flies though. I mean, come on, he's gotta fly. In these cinematics that we see, these giant wings pop out, and he just starts, flying across Azeroth and just wreaking a ton of havoc.
Yep, exactly. So, and maybe you could incorporate that one trait that we read earlier where he leaves a trail of fire under his wake because he just can't stop destroying things.
Yeah, would you? I mean, I wouldn't.
I mean, I would absolutely destroy everything I could.
What's your first basic ability?
The first one is Claw Swipe. In a giant arc, Deathwing sweeps his claw across the battlefield, dealing extra damage to minions and mercenaries. Any enemies, though, hit with this do take damage and are set on fire for dot damage.
Nice. Okay, so this is where it feels a little specialisty, right? Because you're getting this wave clear with extra damage to minions and mercenaries. But if you happen to hit a hero, they're set on fire for dot damage. So it still has utility versus heroes as well as minions and mercs.
Exactly. And I really wanted to incorporate fire into this because, though Alexstrasza is a red dragon, Deathwing has a far more fiery feel to him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The corruption of the old gods has caused his very, skin to start bursting apart with, all this corruption and fiery goodness. Basically his scales are splitting apart. And that's why he was dormant for so long, because he couldn't handle that power. But then I believe it was the goblins or someone decided to build him armor to hold his body together and to hold all of this corruption in so that he could go back out into the world and just destroy.
And that's amazing. That's just such a great idea for a bad guy. Your pieces can't be held together because there's just too much power. You are too powerful.
Yeah, it's I think that is really original and really cool. That idea that, you have to, and man, these cinematics that you watch where they're building this armor and it basically has spikes on it and they have to shove it into Deathwing's skin, quote unquote. And you can hear him screaming, and then eventually he gets tired of it and destroys half of the people that are trying to do it. I mean, it's really cool. Check it out. What's your second basic ability?
The second one is called Tail Whip, and I want to thank Dark Souls because everything with a tail in Dark Souls hits you with their tail. So, as a dragon, he's going to have a tail, and why shouldn't he hit you? So, spinning around quickly, Deathwing uses his tail to stun enemies, catching them underneath the weight of his appendage. While stuck under this tail, enemies take fire damage.
Oh, okay, so explain the animation of this that you're thinking. So he's going to be facing towards the enemy. He's going to spin around, and if he catches a hero in his spin, it's going to pin them under, and he stops spinning at that point.
Correct. So if it's a single hero, it'll knock them down. The tail will rest on them for a period of time, and then Deathwing will have to move. Or if it's a line of minions, I like to imagine this one would sweep them into a line and then rest on top of them.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool, because then you can combo that up with your Q and you could claw swipe that whole line. That's the specialist. That's a great idea.
Thanks. And you can imagine, too, the fire damage would probably stack as well if you could do this right. But to nerf that, you might have the dots only last half a second or something.
Oh, yeah, that's really cool. So you're thinking this more as less in the hero aspect and more in the minions, mercenaries, trying to do that specialist thing.
Exactly. So if you use the ability in lane, it's great for taking out groups of things. But if you have to use it in a team fight, it's pretty good for single damage on single heroes.
Yeah, and this is something we see in World of Warcraft a lot with dragons that you fight. The tail whip, the whole, it goes from dragon to dragon to dragon almost, because it's such a iconic part of fighting a dragon in these universes. The tail whip, I could imagine standing there in armor and have to worry about that tail if the dragon turns to attack somebody else. That thing's probably, thousands of pounds coming smashing down at you.
Oh my goodness, and there's no telling how long they've practiced hitting things with this appendage.
Yeah. What's your third basic to combo on top of that?
The third one is called Firestorm. Using his massive wings, Deathwing creates 2 fire tornadoes that deal damage and either lock onto the first enemy hero they hit or revolve around enemy minions and mercs.
Okay, so these tornadoes are going to be ones that deal damage and don't stun. So we're not seeing like a gravity lapse from Kael'thas here, or even the tornado that we see from the boss on Sky Temple that pushes you in directions. These are just going to be damage dealing fire. That's so cool. That's like the nerdiest thing I've ever said, but I think that's the coolest thing ever. Damage dealing lava and fire tornadoes.
Well, the tornadoes are really cool in Sky Temple, so why not give that to a hero? And why not give it to Deathwing, since he's this ultimate fire dragon? So I really like this idea that they're these tiny little tornadoes, and once they encircle you, they're on you as you run around until they wear themselves out.
Like an Artanis Purifier Beam. Like, you've got to just keep moving. You can't be hit by these tornadoes. So talk to me a little bit about the targeting with this ability. So are you hitting it and these 2 tornadoes shoot out and then they follow whoever is closest or whatever they lock onto? Do they have priority to minions and mercs? Or do you have to select a target for them to go after?
This would be a skill shot, and it would prioritize heroes over minions and mercenaries.
Oh, okay. So maybe if it gets within a certain distance of a target, that's what it locks on to?
Yeah, I would imagine, too, it would lock on to the first thing it comes across with the priority. So if a hero runs into a minion wave, but a tornado has already locked onto those minions, it wouldn't then shift its focus to the hero that just entered that area.
Oh, imagine the visual for this, right? 2 fire tornadoes just going around the battlefield. And are you thinking, because I know the way that you think sometimes about these things, like this would be a kind of Samoro way to take a mercenary camp, right? Throw these 2 tornadoes on here. You're also clawing at both of them. You're dropping your E as well. This is like a huge mercenary strat as well. More damage coming from more sources.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the fire mage we don't really have. Kael'thas is a fire mage. I won't take that away from him. But this, more fire all the time. Why not put fire on Kael'thas's tornado? Because Deathwing's gonna have it.
We heard you liked fire, so we put fire on your fire.
No one can stop you now.
All right, what is your first heroic ability?
The first one, Bear My Burden. And this was inspired by what I found out with that lore I mentioned earlier about the weight of the earth, that whole Atlas idea. For a brief period of time, Neltharion can share his burden and his curse with an enemy player. While under this spell, the chosen enemy hero now feels the weight of all Azeroth pressing down upon them, crushing them slowly. This deals damage over time and slows them while active.
Nice. All right, you know what I'm going to ask here. What does this look like on the battlefield? How do you know this is happening to you when your health is slowly going down and you're slowed? Is it just an icon, or is there some sort of, compression animation?
I would hope there could be an obvious compression animation without resorting to earth pieces flying to stick to the hero, because that's kind of silly. But I would imagine on your screen, maybe you get cracks across your vision because it looks like the glass is being crushed as the entire thing is imploding on you.
Oh, that's cool. And I didn't even think of something you could do with like the visual HUD of what you're looking at on the screen. I was just thinking the tune, but that's even better. Like, you've got maybe like your abilities bar or something, starts to look compressed or crushed or something like that as things are coming down. I love when they do stuff with the heads-up display, like the Morales overlay when the medevac dropship comes in, things like that. I think that's really cool.
It's really unique, and it really makes it feel like you're the one who has suffered at the hands of this trait or been helped by this trait.
Yeah, I think that's really, really neat. Okay, what's the second heroic to go along with that one?
All right, the second one, Aspect of Death. Deathwing takes to the skies, casting a shadow of death on the enemy team. This shadow is controllable by the player. While enemy heroes are covered in this darkness, they take increased damage from all friendly sources.
Okay, this is how you get the size of Deathwing. Kristen, you have solved the problem that Reddit has. Right here, so you're saying that he's going to fly up into the sky, so Deathwing will be absent from the battlefield at this point, but since you're flying closer to the light source, your shadow will be huge on the battlefield, right? So you're able to control. That is a really neat idea.
Yeah, I mean, imagine Hyperion-sized Deathwing shadow, and the enemy team has to scramble to get out because this is going to be one of those really, really powerful attacks where to counter it, simply run away until it's done.
Oh, this is a winner. That is a really good idea, and it satisfies so many of my thoughts of Deathwing, because that's what we see. Even when they teased Chromie, right? They showed the dragon shadow that was flying over the battlefield, and everybody went berserk about that. Even then, they thought it was Deathwing. They thought it was dragons and all this stuff. Blizzard, we just want Deathwing. But anyways, these shadows of these dragons flying over, in all honesty, it's in a ton of different films, a ton of different fantasy universes that we see where it's just, this quaint little town and all of a sudden this massive dragon shadow just flies right over it. We see it in Lord of the Rings. We see it in WoW, obviously. There's tons of places.
Yeah, it's a very, very common trope in such a fantastical game as Heroes is clearly inspired. All of these intellectual properties have been inspired by. It would be crazy not to incorporate that more to signal impending doom or impending death or something bad happening. I mean, we've always thought about storms. I mean, humans have probably seen storms and shadows over the sun as negative for quite some time. So it's probably more of a natural reaction by now at this point.
Oh, that's so cool. Very, very cool. Bravo. So if you had to sum your whole specialist Deathwing up, what would you say?
I would say burn, baby, burn.
Perfect. Burn, mercs, burn. Or burn, minions, burn. Some of those things. Just the push power with this. And especially because you're going to be able to get out of battle with that heroic and help your team in a way that, a tank would. Or, giving them all this buff from this shadow is really cool.
Yeah, and I like that it kind of gives his team zoning control as well, because that also plays to having control over the ground, the map itself.
Yeah, super Cool. All right. Well, before we get to my build, we have some people that we need to thank. We need to thank, as always, our patrons for supporting the show. Thank you so much. You guys help the show go from week to week to week, and we super appreciate it. If you would like to become a patron of HeroesForge, you can head on over to patreon.com/HeroesForge, and you can check out all the different ways you can pledge and donate to help the show grow. Also, we want to thank everyone that's given us a 5-star review on iTunes. If you listen to the show on iTunes and you happen to like it, drop us a 5-star review and make sure you leave your name and a little brief message, and we'll be able to give you a shout out at this point in the show, thanking you for your support. Also, thank you to everyone that comes to the chat week after week. You guys help keep this organic and fun. So those are all the thank yous. I think it's time to get into the second build here, and I'm going with the dragon form here, but I couldn't get away from multi-class warrior assassin.
Ooh, multi-class. So are you thinking he's gonna transform at all, or so I gave you my reasoning for specialist. So what was your thought process behind the warrior assassin?
I originally thought, okay, so I guess I should explain what I'm thinking about multi-class, because technically it's not multi-class in my mind. It's more of a warrior that deals a lot of damage but also has a lot of health. So it's like an OP warrior, basically, not a bruiser, but like a super warrior. That's what I'm thinking, and I'm calling it out right now that I was writing some of this out, and I was like, yep, I'm going to put this in here, and it's probably a little OP, and I don't care, because it's Deathwing.
Exactly, and this is all imagining right now, so we should take it as far left field as we can go. The people at Blizzard, the wonderful minds and mathematicians are the ones that get to reel it on in.
Yeah, because I saw those armor, and I saw this huge, massive, hulking being, and I thought warrior, and then I thought, with the same thing you did, the fire and all this stuff, and when I think about that sort of magic and fire, I think assassin. So I was thinking, I'm gonna make Deathwing both. So you're never gonna be able to select something like Varian has that makes you, clearly a tank. But, I guess Varian has the same kind of thing where you could build DPS, 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 and then you could take Taunt as your heroic or something, and you could take, something that was tanky and then still be doing a ton of damage. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, and it all kind of combines into this trait I'm calling the Dragon Soul. So Deathwing holds the power of the Dragon Soul in the Nexus. This is a powerful weapon that was meant to be used to help defeat the invading demons destroying Azeroth, but alas, it was used to help him achieve his own corrupt plans. When the Dragon Soul is completed, when it's completely charged, Deathwing will gain the benefits of this incredible artifact in the form of one of the 3 activatable abilities below. Deathwing these are one of the 3 things. He either begins to glow with red hot magma and deals damages to enemies around him, like a burning rage. Or Deathwing is able to take flight for a short distance and all terrain is passable. He can go over anything. Or Deathwing lets out a roar that shakes the ground, slowing enemies in the area. Once the Dragon's Soul is fully charged, this ability can be chosen by the Deathwing player at any time and does not expire. Once the player activates the Dragon's Soul, the ability will only last for its allotted amount of time, and they will need to begin to charge the Dragon's Soul again by using the W ability, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Nice. So not only is he a high health, high damage warrior, but he's also multi-purpose. He fits every team comp ever. It doesn't matter who you're up against. That fits Deathwing. I can't imagine him being weak to anything except his own greed.
Yeah, he's huge. I mean, this is really, really just out of the box here. I want him to be able to just be a warrior that has the ability to select a talent more often. So we all know what levels we get to select talents at, right? And Chromie gets to select it a level earlier. Well, this gives him the ability to change talents, quote unquote, throughout the game, because you can select one of these 3 things each time your trait is charged up.
Yeah, now in your talents, in the talents that you have, would you see the talents focusing on buffing one of these 3 things, or would one talent toward the trait buff all of them?
I actually believe that the first talent you take in this Deathwing matchup to kind of balance things out is the Dragon Soul trait. Like, you are forced to take this trait on Deathwing as your first talent choice, so you don't get extra stuff on top of it. Or maybe even it would be a couple levels after that. Like, maybe it would land on 4, where you wouldn't have your trait until later in the game to kind of, balance it out a little bit.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So because it's so powerful, you would kind of push it back a little bit. You wouldn't make his other abilities as impactful, but I'm still assuming incredibly impactful.
Yeah, it's Deathwing. Let's talk about his mount. his mount, I'm saying that Deathwing actually, believe it or not, other than that Dragon Soul choice to take flight, will not fly on the battlefield. He will be on, his all 4s running around the battlefield like that. And I think that may solve some of the animation problems with him being so big. The wingspan won't always be there. But so his mount would be just a fiery run across the battlefield, like Asmodan-like, or, any of those other characters that just, don't mount, but they run faster while they're mounted. I think that's what he would have.
Yeah, definitely. And I love the idea that he leaves little footprints. Now, would these footprints last a while? So maybe the enemy team could track him, so you could potentially set up traps?
I think as long it would last the same length as the unicorn rainbow.
Fair enough. So enough for you to see, but not enough to give away where you were going when the enemy team passes by.
Oh, that would be really a cool idea, though. You could kind of set up ambushes and just put footprints into a bush or something. Little do they know that Murky is also in that bush and a pufferfish is ready to explode.
Oh, man. And of course, the Octograb right on top of it. It's gross. And they're going to regret ever sticking their face in that bush.
Now, with your build, the flight is such an iconic part of Deathwing, right? But when he takes off, he's not very agile. I mean, he's huge. So that's why I was thinking with this Dragon Soul trait, when you activate this, he's got to really, get his wings out and just pump air to kind of grab, wind to be able to get up over obstacles and stuff. So, I'm thinking in order for him to do a ton of damage on the battlefield, he wouldn't be flying in this build.
I think that's fair. And I mean, what matter of decay is his body in, right? How are his wings? They could have holes through every bit of skin. And in that case, flight's not going to be going too well.
Yeah, maybe that's the story behind it. That's really cool. So this first basic ability is called Lava Tentacle, and this is inspired by the Spine of Deathwing raid in World of Warcraft. So Lava Tentacle is an ability where Deathwing selects a location on the battlefield and summons a lava tentacle. This tentacle will attack any target in range, prioritizing heroes. Once the tentacle is destroyed, it will spawn a hideous amalgamation, a large elemental creature that will follow the target that landed the last hit and attempt to deal damage to them. These creatures don't have much health, but will follow the target until they are destroyed.
Oh, that sounds like if Gazlow's turrets had little legs and they started following you around. It's adorable, but at the same time, so annoying. Anubarak bugs! So with that thinking, Anubarak bugs and Gazlow turrets, if they had legs, how fast would this little guy be booking it?
He wouldn't be going that fast. I think of it in the same vein as like a zombie wall that's been talented into, where the zombies are able to dig themselves up after and run after you, So it's not a huge deal, but it's just another factor on the battlefield here.
Okay, cool. And then would this go toward charging up your trait?
No, that's the next basic, which is called Persuasion. So Persuasion is, well, a little backstory on this. At one point, Deathwing had convinced the other dragon aspects to give some of their supreme power in order to fuel this dragon soul in World of Warcraft. In the Nexus, when he selects this ability, he will be able to drain the mana from all enemy heroes within the range of him. The mana will begin to drain from his targets, and it will be returned to Deathwing as health. This ability fuels his trait, the Dragon Soul.
Nice. Nice. Okay, so this works on mana. Does it work on things like Vala's Hatred or Sonya's Fury?
I would say no. You're just draining mana, so maybe Deathwing wouldn't be a good choice against things like that. Or the counter pick against Deathwing would be someone that doesn't have mana, right? So, yeah, in the lore, that part really stuck out to me, that he was able to convince the other dragons to give their power to this dragon soul, and then he didn't give his and took all their power and basically did whatever he wanted with it.
And that's why you never give your soul to anything. I mean, what did he say to these dragons? Because they were all incredibly intelligent. What did he say to them to trick them? That's what I want to know.
He said, guys, I have Nutella.
And he opened the jar, and they said, cool.
And they're like,
here, man.
And my kingdom for Nutella, go for it.
Nutella, my kingdom for Nutella. Okay,
yeah, but
I do have one more question. How big is this persuasion?
Not big. You got to be in the heat of battle here with Deathwing as the warrior. You got to be in there, and this is like the opposite of Innervate. So it doesn't take that much as you're going, but it doesn't take that much to fuel his trait. So if there are a bunch of people and he happens to be right in the middle of, the thick of it, he can drain a lot of mana from those characters, and I wonder what that would be like playing against. I mean, you'd have to draft Malfurion against it. Who was one of the characters in World of Warcraft who basically defeated Deathwing the first time.
Yes, that's right. War of the Ancients, right? Was when he had to go into hiding? Yeah.
So Malfurion would be the counterpick here. Look, it's all coming together. That is persuasion and building. That is the soul ability that starts charging the dragon soul in the same way that it did in Warcraft. Now the E is called Gnaw. So Deathwing is able to grab an enemy hero in range in his jaw and hold them there for a short amount of time. If this ability is activated again while someone's in his jaw, he tosses them in a select direction that is either directly above or directly below Deathwing. Deathwing is unable to move, attack, or use abilities while he has someone in his clutches.
Oh, interesting. So this is basically an ability that removes an enemy from combat for a period of time.
Yeah, it removes two, because it's also taking out Deathwing, right? So Deathwing's not able to do anything if he grabs somebody with this. He's basically focusing on that hero. And then just like a dog that has a chew toy, that kind of just, wiggles their head back and forth and can throw the toy maybe to the left or to the right. That's the same way I see Deathwing throwing this hero either up or down on the battlefield.
Would it damage them when they get thrown?
Not when they get thrown, but when they get bit.
Okay. So the damage is on the bite, but after that, they're all set. Oh, that would be cool. I mean, I would imagine with this ability, you would want to know who is dealing the most damage, right? Because then you could take them out and you'd probably live through it because your team would then have the upper hand with damage. But what if you needed some mana and you needed somebody to not run away from you, like Li Ming, who has the teleport, so you could grab her, throw her down, and then immediately hit persuasion, unless you could hit persuasion while you have somebody? No, he can't use abilities, so you'd have to do it right after.
Well, you could talent into that. I'm thinking that'd be really cool. So you could say use persuasion while Gnaw is happening, then you chomp Li Ming, and then you're also draining her mana and fueling your trait, and then when you drop Li Ming, maybe you fly over to the other side and you're just Deathwinging it.
Deathwinging it. Oh, I can see the debates forming now. Do you go with the Gnaw build or do you go with the persuasion build? Which one is for not nubs? We'll find out which one was chosen at HGC.
That's right. When this specific OP Deathwing comes to light, no pun intended. Let's get into some OP heroics here. First one is called Cataclysm. Deathwing is again attempting to inflict a cataclysm, but this time it's in the Nexus. When this ability is used, Deathwing will breathe fire in a very large area. This area will begin to burn and all enemies in the fire will take ticking damage. This area will act like a Ragnaros lava wave, but it will be stationary and last for a much more significant amount of time on the battlefield. This would be a useful tool for the Deathwing player to help zone areas on the battlefield.
Nice. I mean, objective maps, right? You throw it on the objective, your team can go in there, boom, you got it.
Yeah, and I like it because in our recent games that we've been playing on Braxis Holdout, when that lava wave gets taken and the lava wave just, deals a little bit of damage, but it goes all the way across the map, right? It's dealing damage all the way down. So this won't do that, but it'll last for a much longer time, and it would be really great on Braxis because you could just burn down those Zerg.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point, too. I was thinking holding the pads, but you're right. You could throw it on the Zerg. They remain pretty stationary once they hit whatever wall they're getting to. So, yeah. And how big would this one be?
I think really big. Like the size of, let's say, the shadow of the Hyperion. Like it's a big ability that burns for a little bit of time. And Kael'thas has this with his Phoenix, right? He throws it out, and if you go in this circle, you start taking damage, and it's randomized by how many heroes are in that circle, I believe. So this doesn't do as much damage initially to heroes as the Phoenix does, but it does damage to all of the heroes together, like in equal amounts.
Yeah, and then over time, too. So, of course, you'd want something that initially doesn't seem too bad, but you stand in it for too long, and suddenly you're regretting many, many choices you've made.
Yeah. So that's the first heroic. The second one is called Raise Earth. So Deathwing has total control over Azeroth's physical attributes, and in the Nexus he would have this same power with this heroic. When selected, Deathwing has the ability to select a section of the battlefield that will raise up and become high ground, like a plateau. It just shoots up out of the ground. Units that are on this terrain, when it raises, can only be attacked by ranged attacks or by the melee attacks of other heroes that may have been raised with them on this Earth platform. The raised ground only lasts for a short amount of time, and then it comes crashing down and the battle rages on.
Okay, so how long would the cooldown be for this, since it only lasts for a short period?
I feel like it would be a pretty lengthy cooldown, because I think that if you took this heroic, it would be really powerful, because I think you could put up your Leemings and stuff up on this raised platform, and then they couldn't take damage from a lot of damage dealers that may deal melee damage, so you have to, another counter to Deathwing would be drafting ranged damage in case they took this heroic.
Okay, gotcha. So with this one, you're seeing this as more of a benefit for your own team rather than harming the enemy team. So when you cast this, you want to make sure your squishies are raised on this Earth so that they have the high ground. You can't beat me, I've got the high ground. And then they do a jump off, and it's an amazing lightsaber battle. Game ends. GG.
Exactly. You were the chosen one. You were supposed to bring balance. I'm trying to remember all the lines, but I can't. Yeah, so you could use this in a bunch of different ways. You could also try to... So imagine it exactly like a void prism, but the people inside the void prism could fight each other.
Yeah.
And the people that were outside of the void prism could attack the people inside, but only with ranged attacks.
Nice. Oh my goodness, the potential for this one in that case, because it could be just to save a squishy, like you were saying, a Li Ming. Maybe an Ariel's in there, right? You just want to get her away from a Zeratul who's pushed into your back line. But what if you have two, you have an enemy and then one of your guys duking it out, and your guy is totally going to win, but the enemy is probably going to run away, so you raise them up into that earth, that raised earth, and suddenly the enemy that was going to run away has to keep fighting even though everybody knows they're going to die.
Oh, yeah. And two things that chat is bringing up here. Epic Lurker is saying that raised earth plus infinite ball lightning is OP damage. Yeah, right. If you put Cassia up on top of that raised earth and you just have the infinite lightning strikes that are just going across the thing, I mean, that's insane. And then Shep5158 is saying, what about people who can jump or teleport? Yeah, you could jump off this. Like, Genji could jump off of this platform if you happen to throw up gosh, all the words are escaping me. If you who can teleport? Li Ming can teleport,
Li
so
Ming, yes.
she'd be able to teleport off of it. Or if you had, you know, any characters that were able to move in that sort of way, like maybe a Joanna or somebody like that, you could get out of that situation if you were in it. So you'd have to select your target carefully.
Yes, and that's great. That's a wonderful, wonderful way to nerf an ability without taking away something like damage, right? You limit who it's effective on. I mean, that's a big part of good Stitches players. You know who to hook. You know who to engorge, or you know when to take the slime, the putrid bile you're going to have behind you. That's neat. Now visually, how high up off the ground are we talking? Because I'm envisioning something that's up in the clouds.
I wish. Wouldn't that be so cool? Then we start running into issues, though, of things that are happening behind this platform, right? So if you're walking behind it, you wouldn't be able to be seen. So I don't think it's that far up, unfortunately, but I want it to look jagged. Like, I want it to look like a mountain that, you know, Deathwing has raised from the ground. So I got all these visions in my head.
But they're good visions. They're good visions. So the height of a void prison, maybe a little higher?
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. That's perfect, because Void Prism is see-through, so you can see through it, but still, I think that's enough space there to kind of dictate someone behind this raised earth. And then Chad is also asking if people could teleport up onto it. Yeah, let's let them teleport up onto it. I think that's cool too. This is just, it opens the floodgates to a bunch of different issues, which is why we can just talk about these characters and we don't have to be the ones that actually have to make them in the game, right?
Exactly. We can think of all of the cool things these could lead to in a fight. That is a great way. You are literally changing the battleground. Now, for level 20 augmentation, what were you thinking? Because I was thinking maybe he raises it up, but it's a tiny volcano. So it starts spewing lava that hurts the enemy that's stuck in there.
Oh, that's great. I love that. I also really like the idea of if you had a level 20 augmentation that completely changed the ability and inverted it. So instead of it being ground that goes up, it's a crater that goes down, and it has the same benefits to it, except if you're near the crater, if you take one step too close to the crater, you slide in and you fall into it.
You know how many ragers there would be if that happened? So many.
That's right. Slide into that crater, and then you get to fight inside whoever is down there, and only ranged people can deal damage to you. It's a craziness, and chat's got some great ideas. Tons of cool stuff pouring in about all these builds that we do. If I had to sum this build up, I would say the first warrior assassin, the first OP warrior assassin, Deathwing.
It works. I love the idea of a warrior that can do assassin level damage, because let me tell you, Bikini Stitches, I like the skin because of its silliness, but also because Arlie, he hits with plastic. So I don't think I'm doing a lot of damage because I'm not doing a lot of damage. Where when it's regular Stitches, it sounds like I'm bashing away, but I'm not doing anything. And it was this really weird disconnect. So oddly enough, switching to a skin that made it sound like I wasn't doing a lot of damage made me a better player.
Wow, yeah, there's tons of that kind of stuff. Like, I can't handle the monkey Brightwing skin just because the sounds are different. Not that it creeps me out like it creeps a lot of people out, I should say, but I've practiced with Brightwing so much that when I play a skin that changes the sounds completely, it throws me off.
That's a great point because you're right. It doesn't even sound like a female monkey, if that makes sense. It sounds like it's a guy that's doing the monkey sounds, whereas Brightwing is a female voice.
Yeah, and I have no bone to pick with people that think that that's a scary skin because it is terrifying. It's terrifying. And speaking of skins, before we can call this hero completed, we got to talk about some Deathwing skins, which was a challenge for me. But Kristen, what is your specialty skin?
This one, I wanted to go into mythology, and more specifically Mesoamerican mythology, because they have this deity, Quetzalcoatl. And Quetzalcoatl is that winged serpent. It's got kind of like a snake-like look, but it's got feathers on it and everything. And in their mythology, it served as the boundary between earth and sky. And so we have that earth connection there as well.
Wow, that's really cool. I need to look at a picture of that. I mean, that's like perfect. You found like the perfect thing.
It would be I think a perfect cool skin you could give it, not one of the funny ones. And that's what I always hope for, right? Because there always seems to be one silly skin that perfectly fits every hero. And some heroes have them, some heroes don't.
That's right. Well, I also went the path of mythology for my specialty skin, and I'm going with the one that separated the cool nerds from the lame nerds, that mythology, and I'm giving him a Charizard skin. And that's the mythology of the Pokemon universe out there. And also, one of the skin tints would be the holographic Charizard.
But that one would be at least 2,000 shards. Actually, you couldn't even buy it. It would have to be a random loot box drop.
Would you be down for that in the game? I think I definitely would be down for skins and mounts and things that only came from loot boxes. You couldn't craft them.
That's a really cool idea. And I say I'd be behind it, but then they'd release a skin that I absolutely want and I have saved everything for, but it's only a random drop. So ultimately, I hope they don't, because then I'd be afraid they'd come up with amazing skins and I'd never be able to touch them.
Or what if they, because I got to be 100% honest here. I miss the master skins. I really do. And when I see players in the game and they have the master skin, I immediately go into muscle memory and think that person knows what they're doing. They've played a ton of games with this. But then I remember that it's not like that anymore and it's not going to change. So what I'm thinking is, what if they implemented skins that you could only get from chests that you got from leveling characters up? And even then it wasn't a guaranteed drop for you and you couldn't forge them.
Yeah, and what if they were skins too? Not only that, but you could only put them on if your hero had a certain win percentage, because then you could verify that you're winning with this hero enough to have prowess with them.
Oh, heck yeah. Bring that on. Bring it on. Or if you have a certain amount of games played, you could only wear this skin if you had a certain amount of games played. Something like that would be really cool. I'm not really into the taunts yet. It's early. It's early in 2.0. Maybe I'll get into it, but right now I'm not into it. What I am into, though, is typing /dance and seeing some dance moves every once in a while. So my Deathwing dance move here is just literally he's going to chase his tail around like a dog.
That's adorable. And what if there was a puppy Deathwing skin?
Perfect. I love it. And then instead of him being able to fly, he would have it's like mechanical wings that shoot out, like he's had his, he's like a super go-go gadget puppy.
Yeah, I call him Brain, and he's got his little go-go gadget wings, and then instead of fire, it's slobber, because he's just so excited to see everybody.
What were you thinking for his dance move?
I was thinking we'd do the Disco Inferno. There'd be lots of finger waving, lots of arm extending, and a whole bunch of hip gyrating. I guess that would maybe not work on a dragon now that I think about it, but I think his back legs would rock up and down to move his hips.
Yes, and for everyone out there that can't see the show notes right now, it literally says lots of finger waving, arm extending, and hip gyrating. I do think you need to take the G out of gyrating and just make it gyrating.
Gyrating. Oh, yeah, we can do that right now, just so y'all get a taste of that hip lingo we got going on.
It is done. It is done. Check out the show notes to see that, because it is definitely worth it. I love this idea. And Disco Inferno, it hits the nail on the head. Burn,
baby, burn. Although he could re-record it as Deathwing Inferno.
That's right, and we know from Ariel's newest skin, when you activate Ariel's trait, the crown, on another character, in the background you can hear Japanese chimes playing in the background. And so there is the ability to add some sort of tune in here, so they need to make it happen with Disco Inferno.
Yeah, and maybe that's something they'll add in the future as a flavor you can give your heroes. Give them specialized sound effects. I mean, 2.0 really has opened the floodgates to what could be.
Oh, I really like that idea. That's great. All right. After the skins, after the dance moves, we can say that Deathwing has been forged. I'm going to call it right now. I'm going to say that Deathwing will be the next hero in Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah, you 100% behind it?
I'm 100% behind it. I really honestly think that they were just toying with us with that Hanamura image, and they just wanted to do that as some sort of, funny joke. And then they're going to be like, yeah, guys, we know you really wanted Deathwing. Here he is.
That would be a dream come true. Yeah. Because if they were going to release Deathwing, I'd say it would be a BlizzCon.
Really? We have a lot of characters, Kristen, that we're saying would be a BlizzCon hero. So I think they're getting down to this where they need to start giving us, the Innkeeper, Deathwing, Deckard Cain. There's tons of heroes that would be BlizzCon worthy. They're going to run out.
That's true, and I probably say everything you suggest they do at BlizzCon. So maybe we just stop releasing heroes until BlizzCon, and BlizzCon 2017 is basically Heroes 3.0, and it's nothing but all of these heroes that are going to drop.
Okay, I'll take that and I'll raise you one, and I'll say they just keep releasing heroes every 3 weeks, and then at BlizzCon they also drop 50 more heroes, and then that's awesome. I have no words for that.
Yep, and then the developers take a long needed, well-deserved vacation for half a year.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And we super appreciate the hero release schedule right now has been on point. And we all know that Diva is coming to the live game on Tuesday, right?
She is, and she is a ton of fun. Although to be honest, I love her mech. I do, but I really like Diva the pilot a lot. She's really a fun assassin, and that heroic with the long-range shot is amazing for keeping the enemy team at bay.
Yeah, I was watching you play a bunch of it on the Into the Nexus pre-show. So speaking of that, Kristen, where can people find you in the interwebs, including the Into the Nexus pre-show? We usually don't talk about that, but it was so entertaining.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So you can usually find me at Dream Destroyer. That is DRMDESTRYR over at Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. But on Thursdays, 3 p.m. Pacific, I do the Into the Nexus pre-show where I do crappy cosplay. And this past week was Diva. The week before that, though, was Muradin because I have learned how to make beards.
And there are VODs of these, right? Are they on Amove.tv?
They are. They're over at Amove.tv as well as my own YouTube.
All right. Yeah, you got to check these VODs out. The Diva one I got to see, but I need to see the Mirrodin one because that sounds really, really funny. If you're looking for me, you can find me right here on Heroes Forge. We record the show live every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/Amove TV, because as you all know, we're a part of Amove TV, an awesome entertainment podcast, video game network. You can check it out. It's Amove TV. Tons of great shows over there, and we're super excited to be part of that. You can also follow us on Twitter at Forge Heroes, and on Twitter right now we have our contest going for Diva codes, Genji codes, and loot box codes. Make sure you get your answers in before Wednesday evening. I'm going to say maybe around 7 o'clock Pacific on Wednesday. We're going to draw the winners, and then we'll direct message them on Twitter. It'll be a random lottery for whoever enters in. Good luck and have fun. If you're looking for our website, it's heroesforge.club. Over on the website, we have all of the other 71 episodes that we've done. We've talked a ton of different characters from a ton of different Blizzard universes, including Blizzard Classic universes, Overwatch, Hearthstone, StarCraft, you name it. We've touched on that universe, probably. If not, you should send us an email, which is contactheroesforge@gmail.com, with the hero that you'd like to see. Next week, we're going to be doing our featured Forger episode, which is where we take a kit that was sent to us by the community and we build a kit off of that. So send us your ideas on what heroes you'd like to see and maybe what some of their abilities look like, and we get to have a lot of fun with that. Again, thank you to all of our patrons out there for supporting the show at patreon.com/heroesforge. All of the people that have given us a 5-star review on iTunes, thank you again. And you can find Heroes Forge on your favorite podcasting app, whether that's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, a lot of different apps out there. Let us know if we're not on the app that you like to listen to podcasts on, and we'll do our best to get out there. So, Kristen, final thoughts on Deathwing?
I think as soon as the Blizzard team cracks the code on how to visually bring a dragon to the Nexus without clogging the runways, we'll have more than enough dragons.
Do you think it's possible that Deathwing could entirely be a shadow from the sky?
Yeah, I think anything is possible. I mean, Cho'Gall definitely showed they're doing weird stuff. Abathur, Murky, Lost Vikings. Clearly the team is not at a shortage of out there ways to make certain heroes a reality and viable heroes within the Nexus.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't even ever come down. Maybe he is just massive and you do a ton of different sort of Ragnaros molten core things on the battlefield. Or not. Maybe there's a ton of different ways, and I'm sure the way they'll come up with will be totally balanced and nothing like our ideas, but still really, really cool and work in the game. I mean, they've done a really good job at that, of implementing these characters, like you said, like Cho'Gall.
Yeah, and I mean, look at the ones that we've forged already. We forged before they brought Varian, for instance, we did on the show. And then he came into the Nexus. And the dual spec, I don't think either of us had even imagined a dual spec for someone like Varian. We wanted him straight up warrior.
Yeah, I think we are all ready for the next mind-blowing thing. As always, we're going to call the show there. Thank you so much for listening to the show, and we will catch you all in the real world.